what I thought I would do is do the talk in reverse order. I'm going to give you what's important now, rather than come to the end. We're in the process. The Millennium Project is a global think tank. It is not on behalf of an ideology or a single country or a single issue. It's taken a look at the whole game. It is not the best possible, but there's nothing like this on the planet. All think tanks have either an ideological basis, a nation-state basis, or an issues basis. There isn't any think tank other than ours that cuts across institutional systems, whether they're UN systems, government systems, nation-state systems. We have a node in Tehran and Tel Aviv. We don't care what your ideology is. We're dealing with human beings. We've got serious stuff to do, and that we're wasting people's time on ideological and single issues, nation-state sovereignty, stupidity. I have at least no patience with that nonsense. So we're creating a different kind of a think tank. All right? I'll go into the other talk if I get around to it later. What I want to show you is something that's not available. Well, we haven't announced it yet. We're creating what we call a collective intelligence system. A collective intelligence system is different than knowledge management. Knowledge management system takes stuff, puts it together with people for what they need to know. That's a good thing, and you should have that. A collective intelligence is different. A collective intelligence is where you take human brains, information, and software and econometric modeling, different kinds of mathematical modeling, and you have all three of them are able to change each other all the time. So nobody totally knows what's going on. It's an evolving process. Just like your brain produces your mind, plus your sensory system of what you're seeing, what you're thinking, what you had for lunch, and so forth. All together makes your mind hopefully improving all the time. That's what I'm going to show you here. This does not exist much in the world yet, but hopefully this will become the next big thing in information technology. My evidence for my judgment is two. One, my first email was 1973. Let that sink in, 1973. I was hooked up 29 developing countries and dictatorships with what's called X.25, which is why Internet's inexpensive. Right? That's my credentials. I've done it before. Hopefully I'm guessing right again. I think collective intelligence will be the next big thing, just like we had spreadsheets, word processing, email, and I think that, and then websites, and Facebook, social media. I think the next will be collective intelligence, because what we need to know and what we need to do and the information behind it is way beyond what you're being given today in textbooks and websites. It's just not enough. Every month there are new inventions, new ideas, and new situations that are not being taken into account as we make decisions. You have city planners building buildings based upon good ideas 10 years ago, because they don't have an easy way to keep track of new ideas. Okay. Now this is one version of a collective intelligence system. Just like you can have one version of a spreadsheet. Okay? There's different ways of doing this. This is for my project, the Millennium Project. We have 15 global challenges that we track. I may or may not get into that. You can find out about that later on in that little piece of paper I gave you. So here the first challenge is, and not necessarily in order. The respiratory system is not more important than the skeletal system. But when you study biology, you study them in a linear way, right? Same thing with this. Each challenge is vitally important. They're not more or less important than the others. And this idea of arguing whether water is more important or energy is more important is stupid. Right? You know, your brain is more important than your heart. That's a stupid discussion. All right, so all 15 of these, in our judgment, is important. Here's one on sustainable development within the framework of climate change. We think it's important to take information and do several things with it. One, serious issues should have a situation chart. When you study something, whatever it is, imagine that you take what it is and you say, what's the current situation? Let's say you take unemployment in Spain. What's the current situation? Is it just a number? What else is important? What's the desired situation? What's the policies to address it? And then, if somebody disagrees, you got a discussion area and disagree. When a pattern emerges, you change the situation chart. Overview is all the text, all the data, all the 200. You have behind this is 200 or 300 pages of stuff. You keyword search. The updates are the edits, because new information comes in every day. Right? Your textbooks are out of date every day. So this, you click here, and you'll see what edits have been made. So what you're seeing right now is a situation chart. What's the current situation? What's the desired situation? What are the policies to address the gap? All right? So if I click on, say, atmospheric levels, it tells me what they are. If I say click on, let's say, carbon tax, what are the advantages? What are they? What are the disadvantages? All right? And everybody's reasonable opinion is in there, so you can see what is the state of knowledge and views of the world on what's important. Simply and precisely. Now, so that's a situation chart. If I come over here to, for example, overview, that would be hopefully coming up here, is your normal textbook. Eventually, all right? So this is your short overview of one page, then one page of regional considerations, and then a whole lot of pages of detail. That's your normal textbook. Now, because things change every day, we click the updates. And in the updates, it's supposed to tell me, if this works okay, what edits have been made. So you can watch in a very transparent way what edits have been made and where. All right? You don't get that in textbooks today. So you can actually click these on and find out the context. Up here is scanning. Scanning, on a sailing ship, Spain was pretty good for sailing ships. On the top of a sailing ship, you have some guy, whether he liked it or not, was on top of the mast, right? And he's looking out and saying to the captain in new territory where the rocks are and where is a safe channel. All right? That's the job of a scanner. So we do scanning in futures research too. Where are the new ideas that are good? Where are the bad ideas? What's going on around the world? And then reporting back what's important to know. That's the function of scanning. So if I click on scanning here, it gives me new ideas that I have to take into account for that particular issue. And I can rate those ideas in terms of how important they are, because some ideas are less important than others. So the system can educate itself about what's important, because you don't have time to read everything. Think of the information that comes into your presence every day. Newspapers, magazines, emails, friends' correspondence, meetings, all that stuff. There's no way you can read it all, right? So every day you're a little behind. So how do you address this? Well, one of the ideas of collective intelligence is it should be selecting intelligence all the time, what's precise for you. By the way, how many of you know what Google Alerts is? Okay, how many of you use Google Alerts? All right, all of you, I want, next time I see you, I want you to do a Google on the word Google Alerts. And then I want you to ask yourself, what are the most important ideas for your life? That's your judgment. You put those words in, enter, and you can do several Google Alerts. And then every day, Google searches the whole world and then gives you news on just what you want. You should use it. It's an intelligence service, free of charge, every day. And yes, I do own stock in Google, but it's still a good idea. And yes, I'm one of their lecturers. But it's a good idea. Google Alerts, you all should use it. It's a darn good service. Okay, so this is another version. This is like even a Google on top of Google, because we have a bunch of peer reviewers going through it, so it's even calling even more precise. Then we have them rated. The next one are news items. The scanning items are things that stay in the system, but information changes through time. Okay, a piece of information changes through time. Its meaning, its value changes through time. So what I just showed you on the scanning, you can right-click and you can edit or annotate about that information. Because information is not static. Its meaning changes. You may have a new insight on that information that no one else does. We put it in there, so it's collective intelligence. Now, I should say collective intelligence is a problem. The right wing does not like the word collective. The left wing doesn't like the word intelligence. So I got a problem. But the fact is, in Silicon Valley and in the ICT world, that's the term we're using. It may change, but that's where it is now. It's just like we use the word artificial intelligence, and the word has been defined in many different ways. We'll have the same problem. It's just the way it is. Okay, so news. These are news items. Now I want you to notice you can rate the news items just like the other ones. But over here, you have the source. This is the UN Environmental Program. It tells you how many items have come in from that source, so that you've got two ratings. One, how important it is. Two, how much it is worth in certain areas, so that we can start to delete items as well as add them. Deleting is as equally important in your life as adding. Right now we keep adding. Give me more feedback, give me more books, give me more stuff, which means we're more buried, which is in psychology we call it habituation. You receive data, information, and you don't respond, that's habituation, which makes you stupid. Don't do that. Delete as much as take. Consider a room. You keep putting stuff into it, you can't use the room anymore. That's your brain. Okay, that's information, news. The next one is, I'll jump over to 6 here. You'll notice that, by the way, we can do horizontal searching as well as down searching. So we go over to, and we hit real-time Delphi. This is a questionnaire. So there's certain questions that we don't know the answer to that we think might be important. So you have here some instructions, and you are able to add questions and define what's important about the question. So here's a question. What % of humanity over 6 years old will be using internet in 2020? What's the best possible value in 10 years? What's the worst possible in the next 10 years? What's the impact of this, and so forth. And then you can put text in. Somebody, after a while, might say, that's a dumb question. We can delete it. A better question might be something else. We can add it. Most questionnaires have a deadline. You've got to fill it out and put it in by a certain time. You add up the stuff, and that's a report. This is not this. The questions can keep changing, and when the pattern of answer is clear, we can put it in the situation chart. So you keep changing the questions, and when the patterns are clear, you take them out. So that shouldn't. So everything in a collective intelligence is changeable. Discussion. That's where certain things are not clear, where you need to talk about it. All right, so that's like a normal blog where you just talk about things. We also know it's important to have computer models. Whatever the challenge is, what are the best computer models on the world on that question? You should know that. We should all know that. It's not hard. If you have a collective intelligence system, what are the best water models in the world? What are they? And we can argue about it. And when we finish arguing about it, here they are. Up comes a new model, we can change it, put it in. Just like your mind, constantly changing. Textbooks don't constantly change. And that's enough for that.